Welcome, everyone, back to the Young Professional African Collective, where we talk to people doing work on the African continent or pertaining to the African continent. We have a special guest today. We're going to talk about so many different things, especially about the dynamics with immigration on the African continent and advocacy with the people who are here. So we have a very special guest today. We have Dr. Seydi Sarr. Everyone clap it up. Welcome. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for having me.
Yes. Well, I introduced you as Dr. Seydi Sarr. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and your interests a little bit?
My background. Okay, so I went to school. I came into the United States in 2003, right? And I have an associate of applied science in nursing. I have a bachelor's in social work from Wayne State. Did my master's in Marygrove College when it was still Marygrove College, right before it closed. I have a master's in social justice, and I achieved the status of doctor in humanities in 2023.
Okay, congratulations. You see this repertoire? Like, she's done so much. So, before we get in a little bit deeper, I wanted to just play a little game just to also get to know you on a personal level as well. Is there a song that you can think of that kind of just brings a fun memory to your mind or a special memory to your mind?
There's a lot of them.
Okay.
Oh my God.
Let's say from the 2010 era.
2000? No. 2010. I mean, something that I'm always. Oh my God. Oh Lord. So reggae, any Bob Marley, any classic is always gonna bring some fun memories. Premier Gao always gonna bring some fun memories. I mean, there is so many of them.
Yeah. So that works. Those are great songs. Great artists, Bob Marley, Premier Gao. Every time that first 3 seconds come in,
oh, you know.
You know it. And if you don't know it and you don't react a certain way, it's
yeah, where have you been?
Where have you been? Go sit to the side where people can actually know it, can dance. So,
yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah, I love that. So, speaking of music and just how much of a reaction that it can bring, there's so many different things, especially now, that bring a lot of reactions, especially when it comes to the immigration space. There's so many different things that can really be triggering and really be interesting. So one of the things that I really want to talk about is, immigration from especially African perspective. I feel like that kind of gets overlooked a lot, and especially with your work with Ibiza. So if you could just give us a background, a little bit about Ibiza.
Ibiza, so the African Bureau for Immigration and Social Affairs, right? Was the work around Ibiza started in 2007. Okay. In this city right here, and the organization became formalized in 2013.
Okay.
Right. So the work have always been to center the narrative of Black migrant, but also center their experiences and lead by their experiences. Because most of the time when you talk about immigration and Black Africans or African American, African or Caribbean folks, a little is known about their contribution. A lot is known about what they lack or what they don't have. So at Ibiza, we try to lead, to advocate from the standpoint of the expertise of those that is based on their lived experience. So when we do racial justice work, it's because we know that we are Black people first in the United States, and we have encountered what does it look like, to be racialized. So therefore, when we do that work in immigration, we go from a place of expertise because we were the one who was subjected to anything, if any, that was negative, right? So we talk about how do we center that narrative and how do we ensure that there is a better access to resources, services, and information. Because we feel like that if that community have a good access to those points, then they are going to thrive. So we try to take away things that are in the way or that are going to be a problem, or we address communities to ensure that when they are creating or when they are designing any responses for immigration, that they take in consideration our communities, our voices and our experience, so that we don't have to run behind and try to bridge a gap that should not exist.
Yeah. So when you said the work started in 2007, what did that look like, and why did you think that was an appropriate time to start?
I don't think I was thinking of appropriate time to start at all.
Okay.
I think it was more about, hey, this don't exist. Why it doesn't exist?
Right.
I need this information. Where do I go and get it? How come I don't have anybody in here who can tell me where to go? So while I was navigating my own experience, I was just like, we don't have this. Why we don't have this? How come we don't have this? And at some point, I'm like, you know what? We're going to have that.
Yeah.
That's it. That's what it was in 2007.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah.
And then when you decided then to formalize it in 2013, why did you feel like structure was important for that to take it to the next level?
I didn't even think that things happen so organically. It was not something that was planned. Abisa was not planned, but the need for it was there.
Yeah.
So from 2007 to 2013, I was not thinking of how do you formalize an organization. Because the work was there. I was doing community organizing. I was participating into conferences and workshops. I was lifting the voices and talking and advocating without having a structure.
Right.
Like I did that. I wasn't thinking what the structure is.
Yeah.
Because I did not feel at that time. I wasn't thinking in terms of structure, but also that was not invalidating what I was putting on the table.
Right.
Right. In 2013, a friend of mine was like, if you are going to do this and it's taking all your time, you need to apply for grant. And I was like, how do you do that? He said, you have to have a status. That would be helpful. So that's how that conversation about what do we formalize and how do we formalize came about. Because the work was taking a lot of my time, and a friend of mine was like,
Yeah.
you need to be paid for what you do.
Yeah.
Don't do it only from your heart. Right. And then we're like, okay, so how do we get to that point?
And there it is.
And, little by little.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then since then, what type of impact have you noticed with Ibiza?
Wow. A lot. I think in the state of Michigan, because of the advocacy that Ibiza was doing, the idea of coining our community as Black migrant came from the work from Ibiza. Before we start advocating hard and calling and naming ourselves, when you are in the state of Michigan, you were not coined as an entity.
Okay.
Right? When you talk about immigration, people knew about all the Latino organizations, but nobody was having a conversation about what the experience of a Black migrant is or look like. Administrators was not engaged in that. That terminology was not something that people was used to.
Right.
Using or hearing in our space, because I organized into Latino spaces for the longest, and there was not a conversation about being a Black migrant. So you talk with elected officials, it was always a conversation about immigration in general.
Right.
So I think our presence and our push made the ecosystem coin that here in the state of Michigan, where it was now, it's a thing.
Right.
Now you can be like, I'm pulling this Black migrant. This is the community that I am addressing. Right. In terms of community, Detroit, for example, we were part of the community who pushed for the founding committee of the Immigration Task Force.
Okay.
Right. From that Immigration Task Force, we were the people who was pushing for a municipal ID. So when you see the municipal ID today, you remember the very first meeting around, are we going to go for municipal ID, yes or no? Where people were like, we don't need it, we need a real ID. And others was like, but if we cannot get to a real ID, can we get to a municipal ID? If they're going to take away driver licenses, can we mitigate things with a municipal ID? So, Immigration Task Force, the Welcoming Michigan, Welcoming Detroit, the first conversation around how do we make this space a welcoming space. Abiso was part of those very first conversation. The push against 287G so many years before. Now we're going to go back to that fight again. Making sure that Wayne County would not do 87G no more. 2012.
A little bit on
87G is what they used to call secure community. They bring about the program where local government are like, hey, we are signing on into this program to make our system or our community more secure, which means we are going to collaborate with ICE.
Okay.
So we did not have that for the longest.
Okay.
But now we're about to go back to that conversation with this new administration. Right. The push to get in 2012 the ordinance saying that local police in Detroit would not, collude with immigration. Right. And then some policy work, some national policy work with Undocu Black or other organizations, the creation of the Black Immigrant Bail Bond with my friend Gerline from the Haitian Bridge Alliance. So we are co-founder of the only Black Immigrant Bail Bond, right?
Wow.
And thousands and thousands of relocation of people for housing when the crisis of the asylum seekers came in. 283 people bailed out between 2020 and 2022.
Wow.
African Black migrant bailing out. Man, I don't even know. I don't even have these numbers, but counting them in thousands, it's like, other service providings that have happened to bridge the gap for our communities. Yeah, a lot of achievement, I would say.
So from a lack of, something out there for what you needed, came from the idea to then create yourself. And then being able to connect with other people to actually help take it to the next level and keep growing it to where people have somewhere that they can ask for and get resources. They can figure out how to come here when they're asylum seeking or when they're migrating here and trying to establish themselves and their families. That's really an amazing thing. And I feel like a lot of people have interest in maybe trying to figure out like, how do you like really bridge that gap between, whether it's Africans, whether it's Haitians or Caribbean people coming over. I guess what are some ways that people can think about like being a part of something like this?
I don't think that there's a lot of thinking to do.
Okay.
Like honestly, I tell people who want to volunteer all the time, people need to decolonize the way they think about the work. So we are very intentional at using a decolonizing practices when we do the work.
How does that look?
Listen, when your foot hurt. Do you need me to diagnose that your foot hurt?
No, I could tell.
You can tell that your foot hurt.
Right.
So if I bring a shoe and give it to you and I say this shoe should work, should it work?
Not automatically.
Thank you. So who is the expert in telling me if that shoe would fit?
It's the person with
Thank
the
you.
foot issue.
So if we are the one with the issue, we have an uncle and auntie who is undocumented at home. We have a cousin who maybe came to school and the visa is going to expire and so on and so forth, right? If you want to come and be part of the work, you know what you want to do. You know if you want to make it easier for students to stay with their visa. You know if you want to find a pathway for people to be able to renew their visa when they are here or to extend their visa, right? So because of our own experiences, everybody has something to offer.
Yeah.
Because you have a piece of a solution. Because of your own experience.
Right.
And that's what you bring into the table. If you are a Black migrant and you walk into a room and you have children and they're talking about food and what kind of food is going to be chosen for this menu, and your child goes to that program or to that school, there is nobody in that room better than you to sit in that meeting, even if you are a volunteer, and to say, hey, this school have this many Black immigrant children, and this many of them don't eat this kind of food.
Right. And
this kind of food is not being provided.
Right.
You might see it as something being, oh, it's not enough. But it's enough, is enough to change the course of what that school is going to put on the menu.
Yeah.
And that's mean not only your child, but maybe the 200 other child coming this year. Because of you sitting in that one meeting, you went to the bilingual parent engagement coordination meeting and you said one thing. And they took that in consideration, or you made sure that what you wanted is going to be taken into consideration. That is changing the life of so many more other students behind, after your child, after your niece, after your brother.
Yeah, definitely.
That's why I tell all the time to Black immigrants, it's like there is not a level of I don't have the expertise to be involved that exists, because that's your own life. Who else is going to be expert of your own experience?
Definitely.
And that's why I think for me, engaging into advocacy, however it looks like. Some people are in economical development. They want people to have access to loan. They want people to be able to put their LLC. Then that's what you're gonna do, right? And it's gonna change because you can bridge those gaps. If you're like, hey, I'm in social services, I don't like when my cousin go to the Department of Human Services and they are being mistreated. What are you going to do about it?
Right.
If you're going to be like, hey, these people want to take the driver license test and there is no Igbo, but there is Bengali. What can we do for this to happen?
Right.
Or who is going to come and interpret in Yoruba?
Yeah.
What do we need to have a Yoruba interpreter here when my people come take the test?
Just those simple mindset changes and being present and being able to say like, hey, this is something that there's enough of us here. And even if it wasn't as big of a population as it is, it's still worth it to
and
try
it's never how many people. It's about how are we ensuring that everybody have the right access to a good quality of life. Our administration need to understand that. Local or not local.
Yeah.
It's not about the number. I'm serving 1,000 people. You are not doing your job if you have 10 people in your community that don't have no services that are fitting their needs. And you are the one responsible to ensure that they have the right services.
Yeah.
Don't tell me, oh, it's only 10 of them. It's never only.
Very true. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. In your work, I saw on your website, there's only one city that has a Office of African Affairs, and that's in DC. Are we trying to, I don't know, like expand that more? Like, what are some ways that, one, you think it would benefit other cities to adopt something like that? And two, like, I guess like learning from DC, like, is that something that could be, I don't know, tailored to other places?
Depends on the community, really.
Okay.
You might not have an Office of African Affairs in the city of Detroit. We don't have any, but we do have an Office of Immigrant Affairs.
Okay.
So if you have an Office of Immigrant Affairs, if that office is engaged in a way that they are engaging the African and Caribbean community, do you need an Office of African Affairs?
Okay.
Right?
That makes sense.
So that's why I'm like either or. Because if you're going to have the office, what is the engagement that the office going to do?
Right.
Are we, the community, going to engage with that office? Or do you want to just have an office for a name? Or do you want to have the office to have a real impact? And I think every community in every city should say, if it fits for them and they think that, no, we need this office to be an Office of African Immigrant Affairs and that's going to take care of only that, then we need to make sure it's funded. Right. We need to make sure that it is, staffed properly, and that also that community is being served. But if you have another office that you can push, here we have CREO, right? Civil rights. What are we waiting to engage with them? Right. Because they do a lot of civil rights conversation. Where do we fall in that? Okay. Are they really, taking care of our issues? Did they fold it into their portfolio? Yes, no. If they did not, what are we going to do to make them do that? Right. Now, if they're not going to do it after we engage with them, and the Office of Immigrant Affairs is not going to do it after we engage with them, now you can go see the mayor and be like, listen, your people are not interested into taking care of our issues, right? And we are capable of doing that. And this is the community that you have in here that need to be served this way. It's all a process, right? But I think communities have to really look at that. Here in Michigan, we don't have, in Detroit, we don't have that, right? In the state of Michigan, we have the Black Leadership Advisory Council.
Okay.
And I am part of the very first class of commissioners when that council was created on the back of the death of George Floyd.
Okay.
Right. So I have been a commissioner for now 4 years, going into 5 years, right?
Amazing.
The first 2 years of our very first term, there was not anything that was specifically for the Black migrant diaspora.
Okay.
So advocating from the inside, because within the Black Leadership Advisory Council, there are committees.
Okay.
Education, safety and security, arts council. Well, I was like, hey, what are we doing with the diaspora? So after 2 years of advocating, a committee from the African diaspora that is now focusing only on the needs of Black immigrants been created within the larger Black Leadership Advisory Council that is looking at issues of everybody Black in the state and how can we work to better the life of Black people in the in Michigan in all aspects. Well, immigration is part of those aspects. So now we have a committee, right, who is in its first term, that is led by a Caribbean woman, Sophia Chu, right? That focuses on, hey, what do we have to do? We talk about education. How does it fit? How does it affect? So they bring in that conversation to the desk of the, governor via the Black Leadership Advisory Council.
Okay.
And my first term, I wasn't able to have. I was trying to get May 25th to be declared Africa Day in the state. My first term, that did not work.
Okay.
But with this committee and their involvement, well, last May 25th, we got the proclamation of May 25th being Africa Day.
Yes.
Right? We know that in June, now I think the second or it's the third year now where the Caribbean Community Service Center have been able to get June to be declared Caribbean Heritage Month.
Okay.
Right? And every year they get that proclamation renewed. So all of those are things that tools that we can use into the advocacy and into representation. For example, the proclamation for Africa Day can allow any university campus group who have so many African students to say, hey, we want to do this programming on Africa Day, and we can base it on this proclamation from the state of Michigan.
Right.
Now I have something tangible that is saying that you guys are recommending that we highlight this community.
Yeah.
Now, how are we going to use it? Is now in our hands, right?
Definitely.
Because the tool now exists.
Exactly.
How we're going to use that tool, how we're going to engage with that tool is up on the community. But there is work being done for that representation to be there and to be seen. Now we have a tool. Are we going to use it? Or are we just going to check a box and keep on moving?
Right.
That's on us.
Definitely.
So we have to decide that.
Okay.
But there is so many other ways I think that we can engage, and as long as we see that there is a need, if we say that there is a need for an officer for immigrant for African affairs, then we need to go and pursue that. Because it's not gonna be put on the table for us.
Right.
We already know.
And that's one thing that I'm noticing a theme with a lot of your work. You see a need, you go after it. If there's structure that needs to be built, there's structure that needs to be built, and then having structure that makes sense for that community, making sense for how we can actually move ourselves forward. Because like you said, it's not really going to be given to us. It's not going to be something that we can just wait around for. It's something that we have to be proactive in going after. So your background, you're from Senegal?
Yeah.
And how do you feel like the transition from being in Senegal to being in Detroit? Or did you come from Detroit? I guess I want to ask that question.
No, I didn't come from Senegal direct. I went to college in France first.
Okay.
After I graduated in high school, and then from France I transitioned to here. And people ask that question often, and my response is always the same. I was black in France, and I was black here.
Okay.
Right? Mm-hmm. So in Senegal, I was not black.
Right.
Okay. So you grew up on the continent, you are your ethnic group.
Right.
Right. And a lot of the structural things don't happen to you because of your skin color. Mm-hmm. Right. Here it's different. Mm-hmm. So microaggression when I was in college in France and microaggression here are not the same, but they are still a microaggression.
Right.
Right. So the racialization of societal relationship is clear. Mm-hmm. Right. In the United States, you have to take a stand. So whether you want it or not, this is the package that they have for you. Yeah. And that's your package that was given to you without your opinion being asked.
Yeah.
Right. Then I just have to live my life in that intersection, because I tell people all the time, in the United States, I have the opportunity to decide which one of the oppression I have to deal with. Right.
Unfortunately,
because I'm black. Yeah. Right. I'm an immigrant. Mm-hmm. Right. I'm a Muslim. Mm-hmm. Right. I'm a woman. Mm-hmm. Hello.
Yeah.
I live in a predominant black city. Right. Yeah. Economically, we in Detroit where. Mm-hmm. There is always people working to deputize themselves to hold the powers accountable. Mm-hmm. So I get to get up in the morning and be like, okay, you know what? I'm going to deal with this oppression today.
Okay.
Hello?
Yeah. Because like you say, you have a checklist of
yes. Today, this is the flavor of the day.
That's the flavor of the day. Sometimes they overlap.
But I cannot get up in the morning and not be engaged.
Right.
Because of, people say we don't live single issues life.
Exactly.
So there is plenty.
Mm-hmm. So is that what keeps you going to keep advocating?
Yeah. I mean, what else am I going to do? Just make money and sit in my house and play the role that the system want me to play for real, and hide and do what? And stay in my lane? Yeah. Then what kind of world I am going to give to my child if I do that? Yeah. I think in this country, engaging is a must. If we're gonna live in here,
right?
Oh yeah, we have to. I don't see myself not being engaged in any type of anything, because there's a lot to fix. There's a lot to challenge.
Definitely.
So everybody has to do their part. Mm-hmm. I don't know, if there will be wins, there will be lows. But I think for me, it is important to know that I live the life that have purpose.
Definitely.
Because we are all human beings, and if a Muslim sister, loses a parent, I should be worried. Mm-hmm. If one of 4 children don't eat, I should be worried. Mm-hmm. Right? If some people don't have access to drinking water, I should be worried. Mm-hmm. Because at the end of the day, we have a shared humanity.
Definitely.
We might not agree on a lot of things, but we do have a shared humanity. Mm-hmm. And what are we going to do to ensure that I can see you and you can see me as a human being first? Is important.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I'm just really trying to take in just like so many different things, and I hope you all are taking in just the level of care that it comes when it comes to doing with different work on the African continent, engaging with the African continent. It's really the people. I think that's the central theme. It's the people, to figure out what the need is. It's not just about taking from them, but how do you give back? How do you engage with them, and not just give in a sense of like, this is what you need, you'll be fine, make it work. It's like, no, what's the specific reason through Ibiza, through the coalition that you're a part of at the state level, and through even work with GABA. Can you tell a little bit about the work that you do with GABA?
Well, we let them lead when it comes to everything that has to do with economic development, right? If any conversation comes in, I'm always calling Akindele, because I'm like, hey, you know what? I can go to jail, but somebody have to make sure that these people can have, you know, their LLC set up.
Right.
Where can they get their grants? Where are they gonna go? Who is helping our businesses flourish? Who is telling them where to go for that to happen? Right. I can go to any detention center any day, but I cannot be at the detention center and, you know, at Prosperous at the same time. Right. So therefore, every organization, because in different aspects of our lives, right, and everybody have a role to play,
right.
And GABA is leading on the economic development. You know, how are we making sure that we have access to these resources for these businesses to thrive? How are we making sure these businesses can go and resource better where they are not being taken advantage of, right? But also, how are we opening the state to trade that comes directly from the continent?
Right.
You know, hey, somebody have to do that.
Somebody has to do it.
Somebody.
What are you going to do? You're going to be a part of it too? You should. I think if you're watching, I think you want to, or you're at least curious. So there's, like you said, Dr. Seydi said, there's so many different ways that you can engage and play your part. Public health.
Public health.
Like I said, economically, medically, you know, whether it's the legal structure, whether it's, you know, the accounting space. There's so many different ways that you can find your way.
Much to do. Any of us have an expertise in something that is not paying your bill.
Yeah.
And you know that.
Yeah.
You know it. This is something that you know what it is.
Absolutely.
Right? But that's not what's paying your bills. So are you going to sit in that and not share it back to your community?
Uh-oh.
Hello.
Hello.
I hope not. Because I think if we all do that from that privy, then we have a bigger impact. Because somebody know math.
Right.
2 hours a week is not a lot.
Right.
That can change somebody's child life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Even the arts.
Anything.
You also are part of the arts too.
Yep.
Dancer extraordinaire. I don't know if you've been to Dr. Seydi's class. Dr. Seydi's class. I'm still trying to get the Sabara moves. It's so joyous. I think it's such a great expression. Like you said, like there's something that, you know, may or may not pay you, but if it's something that you're even in community with, like it's so rejuvenating. And I think that's also important, like in the work that we do, trying to find those areas of joy, trying to find those areas where we can, you know, get energy from one another and just try and show up for one another.
No, for sure. I mean, if you like fashion, you like design, and you like bold colors, hey,
right?
Why not create and why not share?
Right.
I love all types of arts, but here, particularly in the US, I have been very involved in African drum and dance. So I teach what I love, but it's also, like you say, a place of community.
Right.
This is a place where we can just not worry about administrative things, but still build a community around something that we share. Right, which is culture. And when you talk about culture, well, Black Africans and Black Caribbean folks have a lot to offer.
Oh yeah,
when it comes to culture,
plenty.
So why not engage? And you were talking about joy. It's our responsibility to nurture it and cultivate it. Because this country is not trying to give us an ounce of space where we can engage. And I think for me, when you cultivate joy, it's one of the very first acts of resistance. Because nobody's going to tell you not to leave.
Yeah.
You might try to stop me from thriving, but you are not going to tell me that I don't have the right to leave.
Right.
So whatever makes you leave, laughter, then create that space for yourself. Boldly. That's your right. Fundamental.
Definitely. This has been such a great conversation. Like, I want to be mindful of your time. I want to be really just want to point a few things out that we've talked about so far. And I guess I'll go maybe bottom up. Joy, cultivating joy in the work, engaging in community. And you don't always have to see, which it kind of ties into the first point that I think you talked about. Like, you don't always have to find, you don't always have to like have a structure necessarily to start off. If you see an issue, speak on it. Be a part of something that is trying to bring, awareness to it. And then from awareness, now we can, start to connect with other people who can actually now help things move forward. How do we build momentum? How do we really keep that thing going forward and just keep showing up for the different things that we really care about, because it's not always going to be easy.
Yep.
There are, I'm sure, plenty of roadblocks that you've faced.
Yep.
Whether it's engaging here, whether it's engaging on the African continent, and still figuring out ways to move forward. Are there a few maybe moments or a couple moments?
I mean, for me, that's what it is. And like you said, keep showing up. Keep showing up. Yeah. And don't let also people draw the boundaries for you. Right. Our headquarters is in here, but last year we served 4,000 and some change African American in New York.
Oh wow!
Help them access to legal services. Why? Because we were like, our people are in the street.
Yeah.
Our people don't have what they need, and we showed up in New York and was like, okay, what else needs to be done?
Yeah.
Right. Same thing. We have what we call the Internal Law Clinic, where when we know that there is a pocket of Black immigrant or Black asylum seekers who aren't having access to legal service, we will drive with legal providers to that space. We did it to Atlanta. We did it to Ohio. We have in so many places. But we also, in the middle of the crisis 2 years ago, we went to Mexico.
Okay.
We went all the way to Guatemala.
Wow.
To really make sure that we know what is going on for our people, and we can come back and think through that experience and say, okay, what else can be done?
Yeah.
Where can we help, support, or provide, or help a gap be filled? Right.
So connecting other cities as well.
Connecting to other cities, going to other states, talking to folks after they are being deported.
Yeah.
And helping them in their countries where they were deported to see how can they navigate that space when they come back. Sending bodies home when people died.
Yeah.
Trying to make sure that folks can be buried with dignity.
Right.
Right.
Absolutely.
Because that's part of the life, unfortunately. So just staying engaged, and because that's fair. That's where the representation gonna come from. And I think we're the best ambassadors of our own experiences. So we should just take up our space.
I think that's a great note to end on. If there are a few events going on, maybe with the visa, that people can put on their calendar, or with the coalition that you're a part of, and it's the
Black Leadership Advisory Council.
Black Leadership Advisory Council. Yes.
The Black Leadership Advisory Council, the African Committee is planning a town hall in July. I think July 10th.
Okay.
Right? It's going to be around how do people create legacy through community service.
Amazing.
So we're going to have a nice panel. At Abisa, if people want to come volunteer, our doors are open every day.
Okay.
So stop by the office. But in June...
And that's right there on
we are on Myers and Puritan.
Okay.
Yeah. So in August, we are pushing ourselves to have our very first premier cultural event.
Okay.
Where it's going to be about African and Caribbean culture.
Oh, I love that.
So that is coming in August.
Yeah.
Of course, we go. December is our annual gala, but in October, the second year around, we're going to be back at the Wayne State University for the second Black Migrant Convening. Because last year was the very first one we had at Wayne State, and now we're gearing for October also. So yeah. We
a
can.
lot of amazing
A lot
things
of
happening.
things.
And you just said you had the Africa Day.
Africa Day.
How was that
It was
celebration?
nice.
Okay.
It was on 2 days. We collaborated with the people from Al-Keboulan village in the east side.
Okay.
And the very first day we had the presentation of the proclamation. On the very first day, they had a keynote speaker, and the kids spent a whole day visiting the African American Museum.
Oh, amazing.
Right? That was great. And the second day, we had a march of parade of flag.
Oh,
we went to
wow.
Al-Keboulan and we walked into the neighborhood with all the flags of the continent.
Oh, I love
and
that.
some Caribbean flag up there too. So it
Yeah.
was very nice and very colorful. And we spent a whole day. There was a food fight where people, eating and figuring out who had the best this or the best that.
Was it the jollof one?
No, wasn't the jollof rice.
was
So
the-
we're like, no,
We're not doing that one.
no, we're not doing that one. But it was a whole day of cultural activities. They
I
had
love
vendors
that.
and stuff like that. So that was very nice.
Oh,
it
next
went
year.
very well.
I'll be there
Yeah.
for sure.
No, you have to go.
Absolutely. And all the events that you talked about, amazing things too. So I'll be there as well.
Yeah.
So I'll just have to find, and all the information will be on the description box below, and I'll find the links and put the links for the Ibiza page and for the Black Leadership Advisory Council.
Yeah.
There's so many different things going on, so I don't want you to miss it. I want you to be a part of it. I want you to engage in it. Maybe you already know about it. Share it with a friend if you do. If you don't, make sure you're following the pages. All that will be in the description below. I think there's so much that you can do if you have an interest, if you have an inkling, if you know someone else who has an interest. I don't think there's an excuse for you to not be engaged. You can't say that you don't know about it now. You know about it now.
There is no excuse.
There's no excuse.
There's no
So,
excuse.
I'm excited to see just so much more and be a part of engaging more, because there's different things that I'm trying to think of. My background is in the legal space and the business space, but I'm trying to really figure out how do I find my way in navigating different things. And I think podcast is one way, and just elevating different voices of different people that are going.
Definitely.
So I'm excited for that, and even engaging more in the community. So again, thank you for your work.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Yes.
This was a great conversation. So I'm so excited. I'm elated. I hope you found so much value in it. And I'm excited to see so much more that has to come. So make sure you subscribe, you share, you comment, all the things. You'll have the information to connect with Dr. Seydi. And I hope to see you at the next episode of YPAC.